In 2004, audiences were abuzz with a new sharp-toothed horror, which now, 20 years later, has 9 sequels and another on the way. One of those high-grossing horrors that makes up for low budget with innovation. And Saw was so innovative, it spawned an entire subgenre. Some of its imitators left these psychological thriller elements behind and went right for the blood and guts audiences so craved, delivered by increasingly creative kills. Some would even argue that some of Saw's own sequels fall more into this category, delving into torture porn. But it's fair to say the original had more to it than that. Otherwise, I doubt we'd have a Saw 10, and I doubt it would have kicked off James Wan's career, who went on to make The Conjuring, Insidious, and Aquaman. Don't forget about Aquaman. Something about that original premise, the impossible choices, the way it makes you ask, what would you do in this situation, and the way it makes you keep watching to find out what they do, all of that makes this movie worthy of ranking. My mission with this channel is simple. Rank every movie ever created, one at a time. I do this using a scientific approach. Every episode, I explain a movie. As I go, the ranking algorithm will react, gaining or losing points when the movie does something good or bad. At the end of the episode, we'll have a precise score so we know how the movie stacks up against all the rest. With Halloween just around the corner, the ranking demands blood. And what better place to start than a franchise so bloody you could literally pay for your ticket in blood? That's not even a joke. As part of the marketing campaign for the original Saw, Lionsgate held a blood drive where donations were rewarded with free tickets, a tradition they kept up for most of the Saw movies with the exception of Saw 3D. I'm not sure, but that might make Saw the first horror movie to actually save lives. But don't worry, that doesn't get this movie any points. The ranking algorithm is ruthless. It doesn't care if you save lives or do something good for anybody, it only cares about the truth. How good a movie are you? And now, it's time. Jigsaw, you who so loves to judge, today it is you who will be judged by the unforgiving, unflinching, unbiased algorithm. So, Jigsaw, would you like to play a game? Which is actually an oft-repeated misquote. The actual line in the movie is, I want to play a game.
I want to play a game.
It all starts with a couple of guys in a bathroom. A freelance photographer named Adam and an oncologist named Dr. Lawrence Gordon. Both are chained by their foot to either end of the room, and between them is a corpse with a gun in one hand. How did they get there? Neither quite remembers. Why are they there? Neither of them knows. Until they find envelopes in their pockets. Adam's contains a tape. Lawrence's contains a tape, a bullet, and a key. They test the key on the locks of their chains, but of course, that's not what it's for. As for the tapes, they find a cassette player in the dead man's hand, and for the first time, we hear the voice of Jigsaw, though we don't learn that name until later in the movie. The voice tells Adam about Adam. He spent his entire life watching others from the shadows. He is angry, apathetic, but mostly pathetic. The gravelly voice gives him a choice: die in this room, or do something about it. The rules for Lawrence are more straightforward. The voice tells him to kill Adam by 6 o'clock. And the voice continues, there's a man in the room with you. When there's that much poison in your blood, the only thing left to do is shoot yourself. There are ways to win this, hidden all around you. Just remember, X marks the spot for the treasure. He finishes with a threat. If the doctor doesn't kill Adam by 6 o'clock, then the doctor's wife and daughter will be killed instead, and Lawrence will be left in this room to rot. Pro tip, by the way, if you ever find yourself in this situation, tossing keys and tapes back and forth, which could make the difference between life or death, stick to underhand. You know, a light toss? You're not trying to impress anybody, throwing it overhand as hard as you can. Looking at you, Lawrence. Listening to the tape again, Lawrence hears a quietly whispered clue. follow your heart, and he finds a heart drawn on the toilet. In it, Adam finds a bag containing 2 saws, not strong enough to cut through metal, but, Lawrence realizes, strong enough to cut through bone. Their captor wants them to cut off their feet, not their chains. It's a death game meant to test their will to live. Lawrence recognizes the MO of the Jigsaw Killer, a case he knows well because he himself was a suspect, framed by the Jigsaw Killer. So how will this movie keep our attention when it's just 2 guys in a room for almost 2 hours? The answer? Flashbacks. We'll go into the first set of flashbacks in a moment, but first, let's check the algorithm. Not bad. We're at a solid 71.223%. The first 16 minutes of this movie are not boring. It starts with a question that makes you automatically curious. Why are these characters trapped here? What does their captor want? And a mystery like that requires good pacing. Answering questions rapidly enough that audiences aren't left frustrated, while at the same time introducing new questions, so that curiosity never wanes. Saw does that quite well. Why are Adam and Lawrence here? Within a few minutes, that tape gives us the answer, while introducing some new questions. What other clues will they find in the room? Will Lawrence follow his orders to kill Adam? And who is their captor? Those first 2 questions will last the rest of the movie, but we start to answer the latter pretty early on, as Lawrence is about to recount what he knows. And it's a question we are intensely curious about. Who the hell would do this? These types of scenarios, the sort you see in Battle Royale, Hunger Games, or Squid Game, are also automatically engaging because it demands you ask, what would you do in this situation? So you can't help but watch to find out what they do. It generates a great deal of suspense. So the pacing, maintaining suspense and curiosity without frustrating is strong. And so are the aesthetics. The bathroom feels like a real, disgusting place. But on the other hand, the acting is rough. This movie was made on a low budget, around $1.2 million. So personally, I'm forgiving of things like bad acting or a slight cheese factor. I'd probably put the movie at something like 80% so far, because it's definitely entertaining. But even I don't control the algorithm. Months earlier, homicide detectives David Tapp and Stephen Singh investigate Jigsaw's other victims, including a man who died crawling through barbed wires. The tape found with his body reveals what happened. He had recently tried to cut his wrists. Did he really want to die, or was it a cry for attention? Jigsaw wonders. He put it to the test. The man was put in a cage surrounded by barbed wires. He could crawl through them to the exit, which would lock itself in 2 hours, or simply wait to die. The man chose life, but the cuts were too many and too deep. A jigsaw shape was carved into the man's chest, apparently the killer's calling card. Another man was given a lethal poison, then locked in a room with the antidote, which itself was locked in a safe, whose combination was written on the walls. The catch? The room was dark, so the man would have to use a candle and walk the perimeter, barefoot on broken glass, and he was smeared in a flammable substance. By the time the investigators found him, he was nothing but a burnt corpse. At the crime scene, Tapp and Singh find a peephole. Apparently the killer likes a front row seat to his games. And they find Dr. Lawrence Gordon's Penlight. There's a morbid curiosity to Jigsaw's traps. After witnessing Adam and Lawrence's predicament, you can't help but wonder, what other traps does Jigsaw have up his sleeves? And here we get a double dose. Though it is odd how some of them seem to have a poetic justice to them, while others don't. The man cut himself, so he has to endure many more cuts to escape. But the candle guy's crime was faking an illness to collect insurance. Connecting that crime to burning alive is a bit of a stretch. Jigsaw only gets there by using an awkward pun.
So I would be careful with that candle, if I were you. or all the people you've burned with your act just might have their revenge.
Not a major complaint, but makes the movie feel a little messy. And there you go. At the hospital, Lawrence walks his med students through a certain patient's condition. It started with colon cancer, but it's getting worse. His name is John, an orderly named Zepp informs him. He's a very interesting person, Zepp adds. And you can tell he's up to something, because he's Ben Linus from Lost. Though this was 2 years before he actually appeared on Lost, but he's so good at playing the weird, vaguely off character that it transcends time. That's when the detectives grab Lawrence for questioning, and for an alibi, he's forced to admit he's been having an affair with one of his med students. But the alibi proves that he was framed. The detectives ask him to stick around to hear testimony from Jigsaw's only known survivor, Amanda. Her sin was heroin. The punishment? The reverse bear trap. To unlock it, she had to cut open a man's stomach and find the key inside him, all while he was still alive, though incapacitated thanks to a forced opiate overdose. If she failed to retrieve the key in time, the trap would rip her mouth wide open, wide enough to destroy her skull. She lived, grateful to Jigsaw for her new lease on life. This trap is the first time the clown is introduced. Rather than a simple cassette tape, Mandy's instructions were given by a clown doll on a TV screen, and that same doll comes out on a tricycle to congratulate her. Most people are ungrateful to be alive, but not her, not anymore. This clown, never named in the movie, but behind the scenes referred to as Billy, adds a creepiness which elevates this movie and gives the series a hallmark that's helped to make it iconic. Back in the present, Adam realizes there's a two-way mirror in the room. Breaking it, they find a camera. They are being watched. Then they look for the X per Jigsaw's clue. X marks the spot for the treasure. But the pressure is all too much for Adam. He yells at Lawrence, "How can you be the calm doctor guy when your wife and kid are out there? He's got them too." Lawrence is thinking about that. He's thinking about the last thing he said to his daughter. She was frightened by a man in her room. Lawrence assured the girl there was no one there, and the last thing he said to her was a promise that he would never leave her. In the present, he tosses Adam his wallet so he can see a picture of his kid. But Adam finds something Lawrence hasn't seen yet, a photo of his kidnapped family, and a message. X marks the spot. Sometimes you see more with your eyes shut. For now, Adam keeps it to himself. There's a growing tension between Adam and Lawrence, which isn't too surprising, but also doesn't feel entirely natural. In part, thanks to the acting, as it demands more emotion, the flaws become more apparent. But there's also an issue in the writing. Lawrence's orders were to kill Adam. You'd imagine that's part of the wedge between them, but they hardly acknowledge it. Adam never voices his concerns. He never says, "Look, man, I know what he said on the tape, but you don't have to kill me. We can work this out." And Lawrence never reassures him. "I know what he said on the tape, but don't worry. I can't kill anybody. I'm a doctor. I help people, and I'm going to help us get out of this." They actually never acknowledge the Lawrence must kill Adam dilemma out loud. Not once throughout the entire movie. So all this stuff, them fighting with each other, Adam yelling, "Aren't you thinking about your family?" riling up his only ally, feels unnatural. It feels like the typical bad decision-making you see in horror movies. The night Adam left his daughter, it turns out he was wrong. There was someone in her room. The man restrains her and her mother. Who is the man? Zepp, the one who is watching Adam and Lawrence. And he too is being watched by homicide detective David Tapp. Since we last saw him, he's become obsessed with the Jigsaw case, and he has a very raspy voice. Why? Tapp thinks about how he got here. Cut to flashback. Tapp obsessively watches the clown tape which originally greeted Mandy, and he spots a clue for the location of the Jigsaw killer's hideout. There, they find a test subject for a trap prototype. When the Jigsaw killer shows up, they have a choice. Let him go, or the trap does its work, drilling into either side of the man's head. Singh manages to free the man, while the killer slashes Tap's throat with a hidden blade. Singh runs after the killer and gets taken out by another trap, a shotgun rigged to tripwire. Tap survives the wound, but leaves with a raspier voice and an obsession with catching this killer. Alright, before we return to Adam and Lawrence in the bathroom, let's check out the score. Damn, what the hell happened? Here's the problem. The first time we flashed back, or is it flashbacked? Flashbacked? The risk of flashbacks is that the movie loses momentum. That didn't happen with the first one because we wanted to know about their captor, and the flashback promised answers. But the ones you get from about the 30-minute to 1 hour mark don't have that quality. There's Lawrence making a promise to his daughter. The scene is meant to be emotional, but it mainly comes off as cheesy. And if your kid tells you there's a bad man in their room, even if you don't believe them and you're just checking to make them feel better, how do you not check the closet? As for the detective flashback, it feels like a carbon copy of other serial killer thrillers like Seven, but not nearly as well done. And we don't really have any reason to care about Tap or Singh. There's also something inherently cheesy about the double twist. Zepp is watching them.
I can see you.
But wait, Tap is watching Zepp. And also Tap is crazy now and talks to himself. Saw is at its best when it focuses on the "what would I do in that situation" traps. The things that made this movie unique and innovative when it came out. When it strays from that, where the timeline feels convoluted for no reason, the movie starts to lose momentum. You want to get back to the bathroom and see what happens next. So let's do that. The earlier clue, X marks the spot, sometimes you see more with your eyes shut, finally clicks for Adam. He asks Lawrence to turn off the light, revealing a glow-in-the-dark X. Lawrence breaks through the X to find a box. To open it, they use the key they found in his envelope earlier. And in the box, Lawrence finds a cell phone, a couple of cigarettes, and a note, for his eyes only. It reminds him of the poison in the dead man's blood. He doesn't need a gun to kill Adam. And it would be easy, because Adam begs him for a cigarette. Lawrence ignores him and tries the phone, but it can't make calls, only receive them. It reminds him of last night. In the parking garage, he felt like someone else was there. In fact, someone took his picture. He tried making a call before someone in a pig mask grabbed him. In the present, he asks how Adam knew to turn off the lights, and Adam admits to hiding the picture. Then Lawrence tries a new tactic. He dips a cigarette in the poisoned blood, then turns off the light and whispers to Adam, plotting to fake his death. Lawrence turns the light back on, then tosses Adam a clean cigarette, and he pretends to die by the poison. But Zepp, watching from behind the camera, isn't buying it. Apparently their chains are hooked up to electricity. Zepp gives Adam a zap, proving he's alive. The plan fails. On the bright side, Adam suddenly remembers how he got there. He was developing photos when he suddenly found a laughing clown doll in the dark. Then he was grabbed by someone in a pig mask. The movie's momentum problem continues here. Neither flashback is very interesting, especially the second one, because it's basically a repeat of what we just saw. I just remembered how I got here. First off, convenient, and second, let me guess, someone in a pig mask grabbed you. Who cares? In the present, the cell phone rings. It's Lawrence's daughter, then his wife. At gunpoint, Zepp forces her to tell Lawrence not to trust Adam. He knows you, she says. Lawrence demands answers, and Adam finally admits he's been taking pictures of the doctor, and he has photos proving he cheated on his wife. Photos that are in this bathroom now, because in those bags which contain the saws, Adam found the photos, something else Adam kept to himself. Cut to another show-stopping flashback. Lawrence in the motel room with his mistress. It's mainly a little melodrama. Then a phone call from someone threatening that they know what he's up to. He walks into the garage and gets his picture taken like we saw before. Who hired Adam to take photos of the doctor? Detective Tap. hoping he would lead to the killer. And in one of those photos, Lawrence spots Zepp in the window of his home. He must be the one behind this, and suddenly they realize it's 6 o'clock. What? A countdown to something terrible is the definition of suspense. Why did we skip all that? Lawrence was told, kill Adam by 6 or your family dies. He would have obsessively watched the clock, and as it approached 6, he would have had some scary thoughts. He would have at least considered killing Adam, especially after finding he's been duplicitous with him. But instead, it's just suddenly 6 o'clock, time's up. It's a missed opportunity for more tension, but even worse, it doesn't feel believable. It's 6 o'clock, and Dr. Gordon didn't kill Adam, so his family must die, and his wife must be the one to tell him he failed. Zepp makes the call, holds the phone and gun to his wife, but she manages to escape her restraints and fight back. Tap sees the struggle and joins the fight. She escapes with her daughter, while Tap and Zepp end up in a car chase. Dr. Lawrence Gordon becomes desperate. His family needs him. He has to get out, and he has to kill Adam to spare his family. He ties his shirt as a makeshift tourniquet, and he saws. Outside, Tap and Zepp's car chase becomes a hand-to-hand struggle for the gun, and Zepp wins. Tap is killed by a single shot to the chest. Inside, Lawrence, down a foot but freed from his chains, crawls to the dead man's gun and uses his one bullet from the envelope to shoot Adam in the shoulder, so he appears dead when Zepp walks in, but has enough strength to bludgeon Zepp to death. With Zepp dead, they're free, except Adam is still chained up, and Lawrence is quickly losing blood. He crawls off, promising to get help. Left alone, Adam searches Zepp's body for a key, but only finds a cassette player. It seems he was just another player in the game. He was given a slow-acting poison and ordered to kidnap the doctor's family, to monitor the game, and play his part in exchange for the antidote. So who was the true mastermind behind all this? Well, he likes to get a front row seat. He's been with them the entire time. The dead man, Dr. Lawrence's patient, John. He gets up and removes the fake bullet wound from his scalp, then informs Adam that the key to his chain is in the tub, though that key went down the drain hours earlier, the moment Adam woke up. Game over, John announces, then leaves Adam alone in the dark. Alright, this movie's been bleeding out faster than Dr. Lawrence after sawing off his own foot. But come on, that finale, watching him get pushed far enough to finally make the impossible choice, then the twist, that's gotta win some points. And there it is. The movie started strong, then had some issues along the way. But as the conclusion begins, things start clicking into place. Even the acting improves. When Lawrence gets pushed far enough to finally put the saw to his foot, he sells it. And when Adam manages to take out Zepp, it's incredibly satisfying. This whole movie, the villain has bested anyone who came after him, while Adam and Lawrence have been virtually powerless. So to see them finally take charge and beat the villain down, incredibly cathartic. Except, Zepp isn't the villain. The twist pulls the rug out from under you. And it works because it's the right kind of twist, where you don't see it coming, but in retrospect, it fits. They told us earlier that the Jigsaw Killer likes a front row seat. And the execution is great too. The creepy way Jigsaw gets up and removes his makeup, by this point we're realizing it's fake, but it still feels like a corpse suddenly coming to life. And this all coincides with the intense conclusion to the trap, of Adam realizing it's game over. Add in the music, and it all adds up to a great conclusion, which gets a reaction and leaves you feeling something on the way out. On a visceral level, that's how the ending hit me the first time I watched it. In retrospect, there are some flaws in the logic. Is lying on the floor with your eyes closed the best way to get a view of the room and what's happening? Wouldn't it be better to watch through a camera? And given how sick Jigsaw is, and the way he's often coughing, wouldn't lying perfectly still and pretending to be dead be incredibly difficult for him? Perhaps even impossible? Also, how did nobody notice that John spends his days in the hospital drawing torture devices? The drawings are literally opened up for Dr. Gordon and all his med students to see. You'd expect Dr. Gordon might look down and think, that's a weird picture of what looks like a bear trap on someone's face. And later that day, when he meets the actual victim of that very trap, he might think, that sounds familiar. Also, for someone who builds such meticulously designed traps, that's pretty careless of John. And the funny thing is, by this point, the reverse bear trap has already been used. So it's not like he's designing it for the first time. It's not like he had the idea and was like, I can't wait until later to get this on paper. I gotta draw this thing right now. Nobody'll notice. No, I guess he's just looking back at the drawing to reminisce. Like, man, that was one of my best traps. That was awesome. But at the moment it's all happening, those aren't the questions that come to mind. Instead, your heart is racing, your jaw is on the floor, and you leave the movie hoping you never find yourself in the crosshairs of the Jigsaw Killer. Well, I think we can wrap it up there. Personally, 58.618% feels a little low, considering this movie's place in film history. At the time it came out, Saw represented something new. These life or death, what would you do in that situation traps. That got audiences' attention and left them craving more. But the algorithm has spoken, and it seems that time, in some respects, has been unfavorable to this movie. At the same time, its legacy lives on. With that, Saw has been entered into the ranking. Next episode, we'll feed another movie into the machine to see if it scores better or worse. And one day, once we've gotten through every movie, we'll have a complete ranking, and the job will be done. Until then, thank you for watching, and see you on the next one.